Hello, my name is Ryan, I'm 31, I work as a carpenter in a small town outside Portland, and I never thought I'd find myself standing in a kitchen at 2 in the morning. Caught between two sisters who seemed determined to keep me from leaving. It started 3 weeks earlier when I got a call from my cousin Sophia about a job. She'd moved to Oakridge 2 years ago with her husband, and they needed someone to renovate their old Victorian house. The pay was good and I needed the work, so I packed my tools and drove the 4 hours to their place. Sophia met me at the front door with her usual bright smile. "Ryan, you made it. Come in. Come in, I want you to meet our neighbors." The house was beautiful. All original hardwood and crown molding, but it needed serious work. As Sophia led me through the rooms, pointing out what needed fixing, I found myself thinking about how much I'd miss this kind of project. The past year had been mostly small repairs and deck installations. This was the kind of work that made me remember why I'd become a carpenter in the first place. The neighbors I mentioned, Sophia said as we finished the tour, they're sisters, Elena and Maya. They live in the blue house next door. Elena's been helping me plan some of the design work. And Mia, well, you'll see. They're both really sweet. That afternoon, I was measuring the kitchen cabinets when I heard voices outside. Through the window I saw two women in the backyard next door. One kneeling by a garden bed, the other standing with her hands on her hips, clearly giving directions. The one kneeling had dark hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing jeans and a faded green t-shirt. She moved with the kind of careful precision I recognized from my own work, measuring spaces between plants, testing the soil with her fingers. The other woman was taller with lighter brown hair that caught the sunlight. She wore a sundress and gestured as she spoke, animated and confident. I watched them for a moment longer than I probably should have. There was something about the way they worked together, the easy back and forth of sisters who knew each other completely, that made me feel oddly homesick for something I'd never had. "That's them," Sophia said, appearing beside me at the window. "Elena's the one in the garden, she's a landscape designer. Works mostly with native plants and sustainable gardening. Maya's the one giving orders," Sophia laughed. "She's a teacher at the elementary school, but she thinks she knows everything about everything." I met them properly the next day when Sophia invited them over for coffee. Elena was quieter than I'd expected, with green eyes that seemed to take in everything. When Sophia introduced me, she shook my hand with fingers that were stained with soil and calloused from garden work. "Sophia says you're renovating the whole house," she said. "That's ambitious." "It's what I do," I replied. Then immediately felt stupid for such an obvious answer. Mia was easier to talk to, asking questions about my work, the timeline, whether I'd worked on Victorian houses before. She had the kind of energy that filled a room, laughing easily and making connections between everything we talked about. "You know, Elena could help with the landscaping when you're done inside," Mia said. "She's amazing. You should see what she did with our backyard." Elena shot her sister a look. "He didn't ask about landscaping. I'm just saying, if you want recommendations, I might take you up on that," I said, looking at Elena. "I've seen your garden from the kitchen window. It's beautiful." She smiled then, a real smile that changed her whole face. "Thanks. It's taken 3 years to get it right." Over the next week, I fell into a routine. I'd start work early, break for lunch, then work until dinner. Sophia would usually invite me to eat with her family, and more often than not, Elena and Mia would join us. I learned that Elena had moved back to Oakridge after her divorce 2 years ago, that she'd started her landscape design business from scratch, and that she had strong opinions about native plant species and water conservation. Mia taught 3rd grade and coached the school's garden club. She was dating a guy named Alex who worked at the bank. But from the way she talked about him, I got the impression things weren't serious. She was the kind of person who remembered everyone's birthday and organized neighborhood potlucks. I found myself looking forward to these dinners more than I probably should have. There was something about being around the sisters that felt comfortable in a way I hadn't experienced in a long time. Elena would ask thoughtful questions about my work, genuinely interested in the technical aspects of restoration. Mia would tell stories about her students that had us all laughing until our sides hurt. But it was the moments between the conversations that stuck with me. The way Elena would absently trace patterns on the table while she listened. How Mia would lean forward when she got excited about something. Her whole body engaged in whatever story she was telling. The way they'd exchange looks that seemed to communicate entire conversations. I'd been in Oakridge for 2 weeks when Elena asked if I wanted to see her workshop. It was a converted garage behind their house filled with sketches, plant samples, and design plans spread across multiple tables. This is incredible, I said, studying a detailed drawing of a garden that looked like something from a magazine. You do all this by hand? Most of it. I have some computer programs, but I like drawing better. It helps me think through the problems. She showed me several projects she'd completed, pointing out how she'd worked with existing trees, dealt with drainage issues, created privacy without blocking light. Her passion for the work was obvious, and I found myself asking more questions than I'd intended. What made you get into this? I asked. She was quiet for a moment, running her fingers along the edge of a drawing. After my divorce, I needed something that was completely mine, you know? Something I could create from nothing and watch grow. There was something in her voice that made me want to ask more, but I didn't. Instead, I picked up another drawing. This one of a small courtyard garden with a fountain in the center. This is for the library downtown, she said. They want something that'll attract birds and butterflies, but won't require much maintenance. Sounds like a challenge. The best projects usually are. That evening, Mia cornered me while Alina was helping Sophia with dishes. She likes you, she said without preamble. I nearly choked on my coffee. What? Elena, she likes you, I can tell. We're just friends. I'm here for work. Mia gave me a look that reminded me of my high school teachers. Ryan, I've lived with my sister for 2 years. She doesn't show her workshop to just anyone. She doesn't ask about people's work unless she's genuinely interested in the person doing it. I didn't know what to say to that. The truth was, I liked Alina too. More than liked her, if I was being honest. But I'd learned the hard way that mixing work with personal relationships was usually a mistake. Even if that's true, I said, I'm only here for another week. So, Portland's not that far away. Before I could respond, Alina appeared in the doorway. What are you two plotting over here? I was just telling Ryan he should stick around for the summer festival next weekend. Mia said smoothly. There's a band, food trucks, the whole thing. Elena looked at me. You don't have to rush back, do you? Sophia said the house project might run long anyway. The truth was I did have another job lined up, but it wasn't starting for 2 weeks. I'd been planning to go home, catch up on paperwork, maybe visit my parents. But standing there looking at Alina's hopeful expression and Maya's knowing smile, I found myself nodding. I could probably stay a few extra days. The festival was everything Mia had promised. The whole town seemed to turn out. Families with kids, teenagers in groups, older couples walking arm in arm. There were booths selling everything from handmade jewelry to kettle corn, and a stage where local bands played throughout the day. I spent most of the afternoon with Elena, Mia, and Sophia's family, moving between food trucks and craft booths. Elena bought vegetables from a local farm stand, talking with the farmer about soil composition and growing seasons. Maya knew everyone, stopping every few feet to chat with parents of her students or other teachers. As the sun started to set, the crowd gathered around the stage for the headlining band. We found a spot on the grass, Sophia spreading out a blanket for all of us. The music was good, a local folk group that played covers and original songs about small-town life and lost love. I was sitting between Elena and Mia. Close enough to Elena that I could smell her shampoo, something light and floral. During a particularly slow song, she leaned against my shoulder, and I felt something shift in my chest. A warmth that had nothing to do with the summer evening. This is nice, she said quietly so only I could hear. Yeah, I agreed, it is. After the music ended and the crowd started to disperse, the 4 of us walked back toward the houses. Sophia's husband had taken their kids home earlier, but Sophia lingered, clearly not ready for the evening to end. Anyone want coffee? She asked as we reached her front porch. I should get home, Elena said. Early morning tomorrow. Come on, Mia said. 1 cup, we can sit on the porch. But Elena shook her head smiling. Really? I'm tired. Rain check. We said our good nights and I watched the sisters walk across the yard to their house. At their front door, Mia said something that made Elena laugh and they both looked back at me. I waved, feeling suddenly self-conscious. The next morning, I was back to work on Sophia's kitchen, installing new cabinet hardware. When I heard a knock at the back door, Elena stood on the porch, holding 2 cups of coffee and looking slightly nervous. Peace offering, she said when I opened the door. I felt bad about cutting the evening short. You don't need to apologize. You were tired. Actually, she said, stepping into the kitchen, I wasn't that tired. I just sometimes I get overwhelmed in groups, even small ones. She handed me one of the cups and I noticed her hands were shaking slightly. Everything okay? She sat down at Sophia's kitchen table, wrapping her hands around her coffee cup. Can I ask you something? Sure. What's your plan? I mean, after you finish here. The question caught me off guard. Go home, I guess. Start the next job. And that's in Portland, about an hour outside. Yeah, She nodded, looking down at her coffee. Mia thinks I should ask you to stay longer. What do you think? I think she paused, seeming to gather her courage. I think I've gotten used to having you around more than I expected to. There it was, the conversation I'd been both hoping for and dreading. I sat down my coffee and sat across from her at the table. Elena, I like you a lot, but I don't know what that means, practically speaking. Maybe it doesn't have to mean anything yet. Maybe we could just see what happens. The way she said it so quietly hopeful made something in my chest tighten. I'd been thinking the same thing for days. But hearing her say it made it real in a way that scared me. I could probably find reasons to stick around another week or two, I said. Sophia mentioned some exterior work she wanted done. Elena's smile was worth whatever complications might come from extending my stay. That afternoon, I called my next client and pushed back the start date. It meant turning down some money. But for the first time in years, money didn't seem like the most important thing. The extra time gave Elena and me a chance to spend more time together without the buffer of Sophia's family or Maya's well-meaning interference. We took walks around town, had coffee at the local cafe, and spent hours talking about everything from work to travel to books we'd read. I learned that Elena had studied environmental science in college, before switching to landscape design. That she'd been married for 6 years to a man who wanted her to give up working and focus on having children. That the divorce had been her idea, but it still left her questioning everything she thought she knew about herself. I spent so long trying to be what someone else wanted, she told me one evening as we sat on her back porch watching the sunset. I'm still figuring out who I am when I'm not trying to please anyone else. What have you figured out so far? She was quiet for a moment, pulling her knees up to her chest. That I like my work more than I ever liked being married. That I don't want kids as much as I thought I did. That I'm happier living with my sister than I ever was living with my husband. Those seem like pretty important things to know. They are, but they're also scary. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm just telling myself what I want to hear? I understood that fear. After my last relationship ended badly 3 years ago, I'd spent a lot of time wondering if I was cut out for anything long-term, if I was the kind of person who was better off alone. Maybe the point isn't being sure about everything, I said. Maybe it's being sure about the next step. She looked at me then, something shifting in her expression. What's your next step? Honestly, I don't know. For the first time in a long time, I don't have it all planned out. How does that feel? Terrifying, I admitted, and kind of exciting. The conversation stayed with me over the next few days. I found myself thinking about it while I worked, wondering what it would mean to stay in Oakridge longer. Whether there was enough work to make it viable. Whether Elena and I could build something real together. Mia, meanwhile, had apparently decided that subtlety was overrated. You know, she said one evening when the 3 of us were having dinner. There's a house for rent on Maple Street. 2 bedrooms, nice yard. The owner's looking for someone to do some fix-up work in exchange for reduced rent. Elena kicked her under the table. Mia, what? I'm just saying if someone wanted to stick around town for a while, it might be perfect. I looked at Elena, trying to read her expression. She was blushing, but she didn't look upset. Is that something you'd want? I asked her directly. Me sticking around. I glanced at Mia, who was trying very hard to look innocent. Yes, I think I would. The next morning, I drove over to look at the house on Maple Street. It was a small craftsman bungalow with good bones, but in need of updating. The owner, an older woman named Mrs. Hawthorne, showed me around and explained what she was looking for. I can't afford to hire someone to do all the work it needs, she said. But I also can't afford to let it sit empty much longer. If you're interested in a project and don't mind living in a construction zone for a while, we might be able to work something out. The house had potential. The kitchen needed a complete renovation. The bathroom needed updating and several rooms needed new flooring, but the structure was solid and I could see what it could become with some work. How long would you need? Hawthorne asked. For everything. Probably 6 months working on it part-time around other jobs. That works for me. When could you start? I thought about Elena. About the way she looked when she said she wanted me to stay. About Maya's obvious matchmaking efforts and Sophia's knowing smiles, about the fact that for the first time in years, I was excited about something other than just the work itself. How about next week? That evening, I told Elena and Mia about the house over dinner. Elena's reaction was everything I'd hoped for. Surprise, then excitement, then something that looked like relief. 6 months, she said. At least, maybe longer, depending on what other work I can find locally. Maya was practically bouncing in her chair. This is perfect, Elena. You could help him with the landscaping when he's done with the inside work, if he wants help, Elena said, but she was smiling. I'd love the help, I said. I'm better with the inside stuff anyway. After dinner Elena walked me out to my truck. The evening was warm with a kind of soft light that made everything look like a painting. Are you sure about this? She asked. It's a big decision. I'm sure about wanting to find out what happens next, I said. With the house, with the work, with us. She stepped closer. Close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. With us? If you want there to be an us. Instead of answering with words, she kissed me. It was soft and tentative at first, then deeper when I kissed her back. When we broke apart, she rested her forehead against mine. I want there to be an us, she whispered. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. I moved my things into the Maple Street house and started the renovation work. Elena helped me plan the layout changes, bringing her design eye to the project. Mia appointed herself our unofficial project manager, stopping by regularly to check on progress and offer unsolicited advice. The work was challenging but satisfying. The house had been built in the 1920s and each room revealed new surprises. Original hardwood under old carpet, beautiful tile work hidden behind dated wallpaper, built-in shelving that just needed refinishing. Elena and I fell into an easy rhythm. She'd stop by after work, and we'd walk through what I'd accomplished that day. She had a good eye for seeing potential and her suggestions usually improved whatever I had planned. What if we open this wall up, she'd say. Or, have you thought about extending the kitchen into this alcove? Some evenings she'd stay for dinner and we'd eat takeout surrounded by sawdust and paint samples. Other nights, I'd go to her place and she'd cook while I helped Mia grade papers at the kitchen table. It was during one of these quiet evenings that things shifted between us. Elena was making pasta while I helped Mia organize art supplies for her classroom. The conversation was easy, comfortable. The kind of domestic scene I'd never thought I wanted, but found myself craving more of. After Maya went upstairs to call Alex, Elena and I were alone in the kitchen. She was washing dishes and I was drying when she suddenly stopped and turned to me. Ryan, she said, her voice serious, I need to tell you something. My stomach dropped. In my experience, conversations that started that way rarely went well. Okay, she dried her hands on a dish towel, not meeting my eyes. I'm scared. Of what? Of this, of us, of how much I already care about you. The relief I felt was immediate and overwhelming. Elena, I'm scared too. You are terrified. I haven't felt this way about anyone in years and I have no idea what I'm doing. She laughed, but it sounded shaky. That's not very reassuring. Maybe it's not supposed to be reassuring. Maybe it's supposed to be real. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw my own uncertainty reflected in her eyes, but I also saw something else. Hope maybe, or determination. I don't want to rush anything, she said. But I also don't want to waste time being afraid. What does that mean? Instead of answering, she kissed me again. This time there was nothing tentative about it. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. It means I want to see where this goes, she said. Really see, not just wonder about it. That night, for the first time, she stayed over at my place. We didn't sleep together. Not yet, but we fell asleep on the couch watching an old movie, her head on my shoulder, my arm around her. I woke up before dawn with a crick in my neck and the overwhelming sense that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The renovation work continued. But now it felt like we were building something together, not just fixing up an old house. Elena helped me pick out fixtures and paint colors. Maya contributed opinions on everything from cabinet hardware to landscaping plans. Even Sophia got involved, lending tools and bringing lunch when she knew we'd been working all day. I'd never experienced anything like it. The sense of being part of something larger than just my own life and work in Portland. I'd had friends, but most of my relationships were superficial. Here, I was becoming woven into the fabric of daily life in a way that felt both foreign and natural. One Saturday afternoon, Elena and I were painting the living room when Mia burst through the front door with an armload of groceries. Emergency, she announced. Alex is coming for dinner. And I need somewhere else to be for a few hours while I figure out how to break up with him. Elena paused, paintbrush halfway to the wall. You're breaking up with Alex. When did you decide that? About 5 minutes ago, when he suggested we should move in together, because it would be economically efficient. Mia made air quotes around the last two words. Who talks about love in terms of economic efficiency? Someone who works at a bank, I suggested. Mia pointed the paintbrush at me. Exactly. Which is why he has to go. But I need to do it gently because he's not a bad person, just completely wrong for me. So, you want to hide out here while you plan your breakup strategy? Elena asked. If that's okay. I brought groceries. I'll cook dinner for all of us and you two can give me advice on how to let someone down easy. Elena looked at me and I shrugged. Fine by me, but I should warn you, I'm probably not the best person to ask about letting people down easy. Why not? Because my last breakup involved her throwing my clothes out the second-story window. Maya's eyes widened. What did you do? I told her I thought we wanted different things instead of just admitting I wasn't ready to get married. Yikes. Alina said, how long had you been together? 3 years. And you didn't know you weren't ready to get married. I set down my paint roller and turned to face them both. I knew. I just kept thinking I'd figure it out. That the feeling would come eventually. When she started talking about engagement rings, I panicked. That's honest, at least, Mia said. Alex would probably just suggest we comparison shop for rings to get the best value. Alina was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Is that why you're scared now? Because you're not sure what you want long-term? The question hung in the air between us. Maya, sensing the shift in mood, quietly busied herself unpacking groceries. No, I said finally. I'm scared because I think I do know what I want and it's completely different from anything I've wanted before. What do you want? I looked around the room at the half-painted walls, the drop cloths on the floor, the life we were building together, one small decision at a time. This, I said. Whatever this is. Elena's smile was soft and a little sad. Even if you don't know what it means yet, especially because I don't know what it means yet. Mia cleared her throat. Okay, this is very sweet and all, but can we focus on my crisis for a minute? I still need to figure out how to break up with Alex without crushing his soul. We spent the evening helping Mia craft what she called the kindest possible rejection speech. By the time we'd finished dinner and several drafts, she felt ready to face the conversation. Wish me luck, she said as she headed for the door. If you hear screaming from next door, it's probably just me having a panic attack. After she left, Alina and I cleaned up the kitchen in comfortable silence. The house felt different with just the two of us. More intimate. More like a real home. Can I ask you something? Elena said as she dried the last plate. Always. When you said you think you know what you want now, did you mean it? I hung up the dish towel and turned to face her. Yes, even though we've only known each other for a month, Elena, I've known people for years and never felt as comfortable with them as I do with you. Time doesn't always matter as much as we think it does. She was quiet for a moment, then nodded. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know, for you to realize this isn't what you actually want or for me to sabotage it somehow. Why would you sabotage it? Because that's what I do. I get scared and I pull away or I find reasons why something won't work instead of focusing on why it might. I stepped closer to her, close enough to take her hands in mine. What if we promise to talk about it when we get scared instead of just pulling away? You think that would work? I think it's worth trying. She squeezed my hands. Okay, let's try. That night, she stayed over again. And this time, we didn't fall asleep on the couch. We lay in bed talking until almost dawn, sharing stories about our childhoods, our families, our dreams for the future. When we finally fell asleep, it felt like we'd crossed some invisible threshold together. The next few weeks settled into a new normal. Elena spent most nights at my place, going home in the mornings to get ready for work. Mia, having successfully ended things with Alex, threw herself into helping with the house renovation with renewed energy. I have so much extra time now that I'm not pretending to be interested in Alex's investment portfolio, she announced one evening as she helped me install new light fixtures. Did you know he had spreadsheets for everything, including our potential future children's college savings plans? You hadn't even been dating that long, Alina said from where she was painting trim in the hallway. Exactly 6 months, and he's planning our hypothetical children's financial futures. Meanwhile, I'm still figuring out if I want to keep dating him. Well, now you know, I said, handing her a screwdriver. Now I know. And I also know that watching you two figure things out has been very educational. Alina appeared in the doorway. Educational how you actually talk to each other, like about real things. Alex and I talked about the weather and what to watch on Netflix. Maybe you just weren't compatible, Alina suggested. Maybe. Or maybe I was settling because I thought I should be with someone. Even if that someone wasn't right for me. It was a conversation that stuck with me as the weeks passed. I'd spent most of my adult life either avoiding serious relationships or staying in ones that weren't quite right because they were comfortable. Being with Alina felt different. Not always comfortable, but real in a way that made the discomfort worth it. The house renovation was nearing completion when Alina brought up the subject of what came next. Mrs. Hawthorne mentioned that she might have another property that needs work. she said one evening as we sat on the front porch admiring the new landscaping she designed for the yard. Another rental situation, maybe, or she might be willing to sell, if you're interested in staying permanently. The word permanently hung between us like a question neither of us was quite ready to ask directly. Would you want me to stay permanently? I asked. Elena was quiet for a long moment, pulling at a loose thread on her jeans. I think so. But that's a big decision to make based on a relationship that's only a few months old. What if it wasn't just about the relationship? What if it was about the life we could build here? Is that how you see it? I looked around at the neighborhood. Kids playing in the street, neighbors working in their gardens. The sense of community I'd never experienced in the city. Yeah, I think it is. I like the work. I like the people. I like the pace of life here. And I love being with you. But even if something happened to us, I think I'd want to stay. Elena smiled. That's probably the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. That I'd stay even if we broke up. That you're making decisions based on what you actually want instead of just reacting to circumstances. It was true. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was actively choosing my path instead of just following whatever opportunities presented themselves. 2 weeks later, Mrs. Hawthorne made me an offer on the house that was too good to refuse. The renovations had increased its value significantly, and she was willing to sell it to me for what she'd originally paid, plus the cost of materials I'd put into it. You've put your heart into this place, she said as we signed the papers. I can see it in every detail. It should belong to someone who loves it. That evening, Elena, Mia, and I celebrated with champagne on the front porch of what was now officially my house. To new beginnings, Mia said, raising her glass. To taking chances, Elena added. To finding home, I said, looking at both of them. We drank and Mia immediately started planning a housewarming party. We need to invite everyone, Sophia and her family, Mrs. Hawthorne. All my teacher friends, Elena's clients. Mia. Elena interrupted. Maybe we should ask Ryan what he wants before you plan his entire social life. I want the party, I said. I want to celebrate this with everyone who helped make it happen. The party was everything Mia had envisioned and more. The house filled with people, the backyard buzzed with conversation. And I found myself moving through it all with a sense of belonging I'd never experienced before. Late in the evening, as the crowd was starting to thin out, I found Elena and Maya in the kitchen cleaning up dishes and leftover food. You don't have to do that, I said. I can clean up tomorrow. It's fine, Elena said. Besides, Maya's been dying to get you alone so she can give you her official big sister speech. Mia looked up from the sink, grinning. I have been waiting for this moment. Should I be worried? Probably. Maya dried her hands and turned to face me, her expression suddenly serious. Ryan, I love my sister more than anything in the world. She's been through a lot and she's finally in a good place. Don't mess that up, Mia. Elena protested. No, let me finish. But also, Elena, you've been happier these past few months than I've seen you since maybe ever. So, don't mess it up either. Elena and I looked at each other and I saw my own feelings reflected in her eyes. Love, hope, and just a touch of fear at how much we had to lose. We'll try not to mess it up, I said. Good. Because if you do, you'll have to deal with me, and I can be very creative when I'm angry. Elena laughed. She's not kidding. She once convinced an entire third-grade class to boycott a kid who was bullying one of her students. It worked, didn't it? As the last guest left and we finished cleaning up, I found myself standing in the kitchen where this had all started, looking out the window at the garden Elena had helped me plan. The three of us had been working together all evening, moving around each other with a kind of easy familiarity that comes from time and trust. I should head home, Elena said, but she made no move toward the door. You could stay, I said. I mean, if you want to. She looked at Mia, who was pretending to be very interested in organizing the leftover food. Actually, Mia said without looking up, I was thinking I might stay over at Sophia's tonight. She mentioned something about needing help with a project tomorrow morning. Elena raised an eyebrow. What project? I don't know. Something with projects. The point is, you two should have some time alone in your new house. Before either of us could respond, Mia was gathering her things and heading for the door. Mia? I called after her. Thank you for everything. She paused in the doorway, her expression softening. Take care of each other, okay? And then she was gone, leaving Elena and me alone in the quiet house. So Elena said, I guess I'm staying. I guess you are. She moved closer, reaching up to straighten my collar. How does it feel, owning a house, putting down roots? Different than I expected. Good different. What did you expect? I thought about it for a moment. I thought it would feel like settling, like giving up possibilities. Instead, It feels like I'm finally ready for the possibilities I actually want. She smiled. The kind of smile that made me understand why people wrote songs about love. I love you, she said simply and clearly. I love you too. It wasn't the first time we'd said it, but it felt different somehow. More solid, more real, like we were building something that would last. Later, as we lay in bed in the house that was finally truly mine, Elena traced patterns on my chest in the darkness. Ryan, I'm not scared anymore. No, well, maybe a little. But it's the good kind of scared now. Like standing at the edge of something wonderful instead of something dangerous. I pulled her closer, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the weight of her against my side. I know exactly what you mean. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet except for the sound of wind in the trees Elena had helped me plant. Inside, everything felt exactly as it should be, complete, peaceful, and full of possibility. I'd come to Oakridge for a job, but I'd found something much more valuable. I'd found a home, a community, and a love that felt like it could last a lifetime. And for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't afraid of that possibility. I was ready for it. Sometimes the bravest choice isn't to chase a bigger horizon, it's to stay and build where your feet already are. Ryan arrives in Oakridge for a job, but what he really renovates is his life. He learns that love doesn't demand a grand declaration, it asks for quiet, repeated acts of presence. Morning coffees left on a table, paint on your hands. Hard conversations where you admit you're scared and keep choosing anyway. We're taught to worship certainty, the 5-year plan, the airtight answer, the next city. Yet the story reminds us that certainty is often a mask for avoidance. Real courage is saying, I don't know what it all means yet, but I know the next right step, and taking it. Home isn't a place you find on a map, it's the result of decisions made with care, stitched together day by day. Helping hands in a kitchen, a sister's meddling that is really love. A porch where fears become smaller in the evening light. The lesson is simple and difficult: build the life that fits your soul, not the life that flatters your ego. Risk the vulnerable, yes, let belonging grow from shared work and honest words. You don't need perfect timing to start, only enough faith to open the wall and discover the original wood beneath. What about you? Have you ever stayed when leaving seemed easier? Tell me your moment in the comments. If this story sparked something in you, subscribe for more human, hard-won lessons, and share this with someone who needs a reason to choose the next right step today.